We've been called a new cult rising. We've been accused of brainwashing and have been dubbed a danger to society. Our accusers know nothing of who we are, and what our goals are. We are Hyperions, and we seek nothing less than the perfection of humanity. We will establish a new world order, where the people are in charge rather than the psychopathic rich elite. A world without faith and without mainstream religion. A world based on strong, creative, free-thinking individuals. An article has recently surfaced entitled "New Cult Rejects Religion and Science." The author, Jared Hammer, is a textbook case of poor journalism. He hasn't done his homework, nor has he argued with logically sound support for his point. The gullible, unthinking masses eat this shit up without question, so I'm going to respond to the major issues that he brings up. Jared states, rather than turn to science or religion, Hyperianism argues every aspect of everything can be understood through mathematics, logic, and reason. Every aspect regarding the fundamental nature of reality can be understood through mathematics, logic, and reason. This is our stance. Is that such a wild idea? What kind of backwards world do we live in that would condemn us as a cult for upholding logic, reason, and mathematics? We must be living in the Dark Ages. Where would we be without reason and math? Should we go back to the days of the witch burnings? Yes, Hyperions proudly uphold the infallible truth of reason and mathematics. We are the light in the dark. In Morg's explanation, he blames religion for being responsible for sexism, homophobia, and violence. This is a sweeping statement to be sure, one that he punctuates by flashing Westboro Baptist protest signs. The issue with Morg's condemnation of religion is that he takes generalized negatives of religion and applies it to religious thought in general. If Westboro Baptists are prime examples of Christians, then the KKK is the prime example of Americans. The most extreme example does not represent the whole. This is blatantly false, and Jared doesn't understand our position whatsoever. We are opposed to all Abrahamic religions, not just so-called extremists. We consider anyone involved in the Abrahamic religions as extremists. Let me tell you why. Do you know who Abraham is? Abraham is a prominent religious figure that was commanded by God to kill his only son Isaac as a test of faith. Now, this story is taught by the Abrahamic religions as an example for people to model themselves after. And this isn't limited to radical groups. This is taught by every Christian church across the globe. Christians in general, not just Westboro Baptists, are those that would kill their children if God commanded them. That is extremism. Anyone that adheres to the Christian religion or Abrahamic religion in general are extremists. A large part of Morg's criticism of science is his assertion that we cannot trust our senses. His logic is that we perceive the world through the limitations of our senses and construct reality around it. By noting that other species experience the world through their senses differently, Morg asks his followers to question their perception of reality. Hyperianism claims that scientific processes are inherently flawed through the limitations of the human senses, and are therefore not true to Morg's values of logic and reason. The irony is that logic and reason are very much a part of the scientific process. Jared's comments display a complete lack of understanding of empiricism, rationalism, and philosophy in general. Hyperianism is a rationalist system, whereas scientific materialism is an empirical system. Jared argues that scientific materialism uses logic and reason. Well, no shit. Even some mainstream religions might use a distorted form of logic from time to time in an attempt to justify their beliefs. However, they place faith above logic and reason. This means that if logic and reason says one thing and their holy books say another, they're going to reject logic and reason and go with their holy book. Their priority is on faith, not reason. Similarly, scientific materialism places empirical data, sensory information, above logic and reason and mathematics. What this means is that if their experimental sensory data contradicts logic and reason, they will reject reason and go with their sensory data, just like religious people will reject reason to go with faith. This is why scientific materialism is a religion of the senses. It places the senses above reason. And I've done multiple videos on this topic. Hyperianism is a rationalist system, which means logic, reason, and mathematics is always given priority. This means that we reject holy books and embrace reason. And the same thing goes for sense data. If sense data contradicts reason, such as saying that 2 plus 2 equals 54, then we know that there is a fatal error. Scientific materialism puts priority in the senses. They irrationally reject a mathematical domain of mind because they can't sense it, even though it can be proven to exist mathematically. The rationalist system of Hyperianism shows that this is not a reality of the senses. It's not a reality of matter, but a mathematical reality of frequency information, of mind. Jared now continues to list 9 points that he ludicrously thinks undermines Hyperianism. Morgue only speaks in absolutes. Everything he says, regardless of its legitimacy, is said as though it is fact. I'm talking about mathematical truths of reason. It's true that 2 plus 2 equals 4. It's true that the sum of the angles of a triangle in Euclidean geometry adds up to 180 degrees. And it's true that in order for reality to exist, it must follow a set of mathematical laws. If you go to a math class, it's not taught as though it's speculation. It's just taught. We encourage free thought, and that absolutely applies to questioning what we have to say and examining it with logic and reason. In fact, there are many cults these days that don't speak in absolutes at all, but instead they emphasize relativism and teach that there aren't any absolutes. We emphasize that there is an absolute framework to reality. In other words, that reality follows objective, rational laws that can be known mathematically. This should be an obvious fact of existence. Hyperianism claims we're all brainwashed. Morgue likens the cultural and familial influences that are inevitably pushed on us to be the equivalent of brainwashing. From the moment that you're born, you're barraged with outside influences like your family, friends, the media, school, television, social networks. And all these influences shape you into who you are today. When your individuality is suppressed and molded by an intolerant culture, this is brainwashing. A huge part of Hyperianism is about removing this cultural conditioning so that you're free to shape yourself according to your personal will rather than someone else's will. Jared is somehow implying that we're a cult because we want people to think for themselves. What kind of backwards logic is that? It doesn't make any sense. Hyperianism is not a belief system, it's a knowing system. Hyperianism is a system based on a priori deductive analytic mathematics. 2 plus 2 equals 4 is not a belief. It's knowledge. You can be deductively certain that we live in a mathematical reality. And we of course have proof that you can check for yourself. Of course, you must be smart enough to understand them. Our proofs are beyond empiricism and induction. Does a mathematician go around checking to see if there are an infinite number of primes in abstract mathematics? No, that's crazy, but it can be proven mathematically, and you can be sure that it's true. It claims to have all of the answers. Hyperianism has all the answers to the big questions in reality. Questions like what reality is, how it exists, why you exist, and what happens when you die. Hyperianism has the answers to the formal basis of reality. There's still a lot of contingent content to explore and discover. We're all part of an evolving system. Growing and making those discoveries together is what life is all about. They hold information. In order to gain more information, one must first become a member. This is the same thing as going to school to learn something new. If you want to learn quantum mechanics, you have to go to university or get a decent textbook. The basics of our system are freely and easily accessible, and on that basis, you have everything you need to decide if Hyperianism is right for you. If you decide that it is, we'll happily point you in the direction to learn more about it for yourself. We value our information and discoveries highly, and we don't cast pearls before swine. They encourage their followers to turn their backs on society. Morgue constantly calls attention to the plights of this world, depicting society as evil and incompetent. Yeah, I do. This world is a hell. You'd have to be a blind idiot not to see that. Everyone should turn their backs on this failed society so that we can build a new society. We're here to change the world and to build it into a place of beauty rather than something scarred and broken. Our vision for the future is not my personal vision, it's a collective vision that enables everyone to have equal opportunity, free from oppression and intolerance. How is that a bad thing? The leader has a protected identity. Ah, because you mean my name is Morgue. Well, by that criteria, there are a lot of cult leaders out there. David Bowie must have been a cult leader, and watch out for Miley Cyrus. Morgue claims to be above humanity. His website states, "We are beyond human. We are the next evolutionary step. We are Hyperions." Absolutely, we are. Hyperianism claims that death is an illusion. This is terribly concerning as it calls to mind the mass suicides of such cults as Heaven's Gate and Jonestown. Death can be shown to be an illusion through the laws of mathematics, from which we can derive the law of conservation of energy. Mathematics is eternal, and since you are a mathematical being, so are you. This argument arises in opposition to the claims of scientism, which asserts that your body and you are one and the same thing. Hence, the death of your body is the real death of you. The Abrahamic concept of resurrection also implies that the physical body is somehow essential to you. The Hyperion conception of reincarnation, which is reincarnation not based on the irrational idea of karma, but rather on the mathematical optimization of the self, denies that the mind is defined by the body. So the death of the body does not mean that you have died. You can acquire a new body. You have not actually died. So, how can your death be real? What is real is the death of your physical body, but that is simply a vessel for you. It's not you. You cannot die. Suicide, strictly speaking, is impossible if the intention is to remove yourself from existence. Your non-existence is impossible. But even when considering the physical body, we are completely opposed to its self-destruction. We've said this many times in many places. Life is all about growth, learning, and exploration. Suicide is an extreme hindrance to this process and is completely contrary to what Hyperianism is all about. To sum up, Jared's points are either blatantly wrong or an inversion. Yes, we teach that people should reject a broken society, that they should be free to think for themselves instead of being controlled by culture, that they should question and examine everything, including what we have to say, with logic and reason. And yes, we place mathematics above the senses and above faith. Isn't it crazy that people try to attack us for this? It clearly reveals the irrational state of the world. Why doesn't Jared denounce scientific materialism, since they deny that we have a mind or soul? They claim that we are nothing but matter, that our lives are pointless, purposeless, and meaningless, and that we're born in randomness, accident, and chance, and miraculous emergence. This is the gospel of nihilism. Does the commenter support it? Yes or no? If yes, he must believe that we're all machines with no moral agency. If no, why isn't he attacking scientism rather than Hyperianism? Is it perhaps because he's a disingenuous, hypocritical, self-serving careerist who knows that he can get away with attacking to further his career? Why doesn't this person attack nihilistic Buddhism, which denies that we have a self and believes in nirvana? Why doesn't he attack the cult of Sam Harris? The cultist Sam Harris claims that we have no free will and that we're simply slavish automatons, an idea that would drive many people to suicide. Why doesn't he attack the cult of Abrahamism, which promotes a God who orders fathers to commit human sacrifice on their own children in order to prove their faith, and who deliberately wiped out Job's family to see if Job would still believe in him? He obviously finds all of this perfectly acceptable, or perhaps he knows it will damage his career prospects to speak out against the manifest evils of Abrahamism. He clearly finds rationalism disturbing and threatening, something to be feared and eliminated, which means that he celebrates irrationalism. This is a bizarre and dangerous person. No wonder he's alarmed by Hyperianism and the rule of reason. Reason doesn't serve the interests of the hysterical, the faithful, or the materialists. This person belongs to the incoherent, comical cult of scientism and religion, even though they completely contradict each other. He refuses to challenge them. He's a moral coward and intellectually dishonest. He's typical of the brainwashed masses that are incapable of free thinking. He sees it as useful to his career to attack reason, which sums up the world of unreason that we find ourselves in. We're happy to be opposed by irrationalists such as this. Only the rational, the enlightened will understand our message. Isn't it hilarious the way that people try to give reasons for why in their belief system, reason is the wrong way to understand reality? How stupid can you get? There is nothing more dangerous in this world than the cult of unreason, of which Jared is an eager cheerleader. If you think reason is wrong for comprehending reality, why are you trying to give reasons for your bizarre beliefs and superstitions? The last thing you should be doing is attempting to use reason to promote your irrational beliefs. Why don't you stick to hysterical emotional outbursts and proclamations of faith and leave reason alone? Reason is obviously not for the likes of you. This person's ramblings clearly demonstrates that many people have a visceral hatred of reason. They are exclusively feeling and sensing types with no faculty for using reason. Their reasoning is always full of fallacies, which of course they are too irrational to see. They are perfect examples of the Dunning-Kruger effect, which states that stupid people have no idea how stupid they are. How can stupid people gauge stupidity, especially their own? If your reasoning is immensely flawed, how are you going to know? It's because you can't reason correctly that you have no idea how bad your reasoning is and how infected it is with emotion, faith, opinion, and empiricism. When a Christian quotes the Bible, he isn't presenting a reasoned argument, he's stating a subjective belief. When a scientist states an empirical sensory argument, he's failing to realize that sensory data by itself is neither here nor there. It's how that data is interpreted and explained that's important. And that's philosophy, not science. Scientists will irrationally dismiss philosophy while doing nothing but uncritically asserting their own unacknowledged philosophy of materialism and empiricism, which, like religious believers, they never once question or subject to any intellectual scrutiny. What you call us doesn't matter. If we're a cult, then we're a cult of self-directed, self-creating artists, mathematicians, and philosophers. We're a cult that has broken the shackles of the failed ideology of materialism and of hateful mainstream religions. We're a cult of reason, of free thinkers, dedicated to shaping ourselves and our lives, rather than being shaped by the conditioning of a sick culture. Isn't it insane that our rationalist, logical, mathematical system is so heavily opposed by religious people and materialists alike? How crazy is this world that it treats logic and reason as though it were something evil? That's because we live in an inverted world, a backwards world, a madhouse. Hyperianism is a beacon. It's a sounding bell. It's a light in the dark. For all forward-thinking, free-thinking, rational individuals, Hyperianism is the banner under which to unite. My name is Morg, herald of the Hyperion New World Order. Ad Astra, to the stars. Make sure that you like and subscribe and check out my Patreon for hidden videos.
Throughout history, we've gone by many different names and have had to hide in the shadows. But now, because we can reach the masses, the time has come for us to come forward into the light. And so no, Hyperianism is not something new. It's the latest image. But it has existed throughout history. We've always been the outcasts, the outsiders. Look to those who have been burned at the stake, that have been burned as witches and demons. We've always been the freedom fighters, carrying that sacred torch, that sacred banner of reason. We've always been fighting against faith and irrationalism and the vials of religion.
Then join us on Patreon. That's how I'm able to continue. And I'd like to say thank you to everyone on Patreon. I wouldn't be able to do this without you, and it means the world to me, my friends.